Nini everyone, Zabor here. So there have been a few cultural appropriation VRs going around. Um, I've already done that video, so I'm just gonna leave a link down below if you guys haven't seen that yet. Go ahead and watch it. I just give my viewpoints on the current state of cultural appropriation within the pagan community. That's something that I actually have quite a bit of experience with, being a white woman who practices an African traditional path. Now, some argue that I cannot culturally appropriate because I'm Kemetic, because it's a dead religion, while others argue that simply because I'm white, I am culturally appropriating. So, it seems that there are no real rules for cultural appropriation, and it's kind of based off of what the individual believes. I've also seen that this basically boils down to respect and keeping with traditions and understanding why things are the way that why they are the way they are, and not misusing them. Now, a recent perfect example of this would be in a Egyptian group I'm in. Somebody wanted to know how they could apply the concept of the triple goddess to Egyptian goddesses. And you really can't. The concept of the triple goddess is the maiden, the mother, and the crone. Well, there were no old goddesses in ancient Egypt. There were no crone deities. Most females were mothers. I don't really know of any female goddess that wasn't a mother. So, you were really just stuck with the maiden and mother aspect. Now, here's a problem. Isis, Osset, Iset, whatever you want to call her, wife of Osir, whatever you want to call him, she was between the ages of 12 and 15 when she gave birth. 12 to 15 is still the maiden aspect. You don't really hit your mother years until you turn about 27 to 30 years of age. And it's a physical change that you actually feel in your body. You just start to notice things you didn't notice before. It's something that I've actually recently gone through. I have left my maidenhood behind and entered into the matron stage despite not being a mother. So, the idea of the triple goddess in ancient Egypt really doesn't apply. And to force it to apply would be to culturally appropriate. Another good example of this would be, me being white, okay? Because, like I said, it usually either boils down to respect or racism. So, I got into a discussion with somebody, and they wanted to know why I would choose African gods. It's like, well, because they're the ones that I identify with. They're the ones that I work with. They're the ones that I'm most fascinated by. That's why I chose them. Or they chose me, one of the two. Excuse me. Yawning. So, after I started talking to this person, they wanted to know a little bit more about me. It's like, well, I probably have African blood in me. So either the one drop rule applies or it doesn't. Because they did quote the whole you have to be African thing. You have to have African ancestors. It's like, oh, okay, well, I probably do. So is that okay? And then it came down to no, because you're not you're white, you're not black. It's like, oh, okay, so because I'm not melanated, I can't practice this because I don't understand the culture according to you because I did not grow up black. So is that racist? The way that they were coming off, yeah, it kind of sounded racist. But the real message that they were sending is it's an experience you have to go through in order to understand it. It's kind of like in Wicca when you go through an initiation. No one's initiation is the same, but there's still the experience that you go through, and that's your experience. It's almost similar when dealing with cultural appropriation. Okay, it's an experience that you have to understand as part of that culture, and if you're not part of that culture, you can't understand. So, I'll have you know that I grew up extremely poor. I was one of three white people in my school until I turned about 12 when I moved up to Oregon. So I lived in a highly populated black neighborhood. I lived with school shootings. I lived with drive-bys up until the age of 12. Um, we did not live in the projects, but we certainly did live in the ghetto. So I understand the culture. I grew up, for the first 12 years of my life at least, in the culture. Not the magic, but the culture. So tell me again about why I can't practice hoodoo or ATR. Because I'm almost positive I meet every requirement. I lived within the culture for some periods of time. I have African blood, probably. And really, what this boils down to is racism. I understand black people have been disenfranchised for many years. Same goes with Native Americans. And them wanting to have something all their own without someone coming in and taking it and saying it's something else. Uh, okay. That's great and all. I understand that. I respect that. But it's going to take educated black individuals to write books on the subject matter, to educate those who are not of the culture. Unfortunately, it's going to be picked up and bought by white people, so, there's really just no escaping this. So, yeah, those are just my thoughts on cultural appropriation. That's it for tonight, guys. Synapti.